everyone. Good morning. How are you today? Hope you're doing great. So this morning we are going to discuss about chapter 5, Discourse and Conversation. My group 1, will discuss about point 5.6 until point 5.10. Now, as the first speaker, I am Rizka Razimona. Let me begin the talk. In this discussion, I'm going to talk about 3 points. The first one is repair, the second one is gender and conversation analysis, and the third one is conversation analysis and second language conversation. Now, let's begin with the first one, repair. What is repair? Repair is the way a speaker corrects things they or someone else has said and then check what they have understood. There are 2 kinds of repair. It is self-repair and then other repairs. Self-repair is done whenever there is no any apparent error in the other speaker. For example, when the speaker adds some details to repair the statement that she or he has said before. For example, in this conversation, "Hey, where did you meet Anne last time?" "Oh, we met at a restaurant," or at a cafe actually. So you see, the second speaker initially mentioned at a restaurant, but she probably mentioned the wrong location, and then she self-repaired the statement by saying, by adding the detail at a cafe. Other repairs occurs where there is an error in the other speaker. For example, "Oh, so it was only you and Anne meeting at the cafe. That's nice." "No, not only me and Anne. Actually, Anne brought her best friend, Mary." From that conversation, you can see that the first speaker assumed that there were only 2 people, Anne and then the second speaker, meeting at the cafe. But in fact, it is wrong. It is a mistake, and then the second speaker repairing it by saying it was not only her and then Anne, but also Anne's best friend, Mary. The next point is gender and conversation analysis. According to Judith Butler, conversation analysis is able to reveal how people do gender. That is, the ways in which gender is constructed as a joint activity in interaction. Doing gender means that individuals often engage in behavior, language, and roles that align with societal expectation and norms related to the perceived gender. For example, in a conversation, doing gender might involve using language, tone, and nonverbal cues that can conform to traditional gender roles and expectations. These include men being expected to use assertive and dominant language, or women being expected to use more nurturing and polite language. Doing gender means that it emphasizes that individuals perform genders in their interaction, and these performances can vary across different cultures and over time as social norms and expectation evolves. The next point is that conversation analysis and second language conversation. While most studies in the area of conversation analysis have examined the native speaker's talk, in recent years, the intention has also shifted to the non-native speaker's talk. There are 2 studies done here. The first one is done by Markey in 2000. For example, it shows that how conversation analysis can be used as a tool for analyzing and understanding the acquisition of a second language. And the second one is by Storch in 2001. And here, she found that this analysis allowed her to identify the characteristic of the talk and the nature of the interaction they engaged in that contributed to or impeded their success in the acquisition of language items they were focusing on. She also found how the grouping of pairs in the class were important for the nature of their discourse and the extent to which the discourse was collaborative and facilitated their learning or not. Okay, I think that's all from me. Next materials will be presented by my friends Novita Sari and then Azahra Nanda Islami. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, thank you, Kariska, for explaining. So I will remind you again about conversation analysis. Conversation analysis, or CA, is a widely recognized approach to discourse analysis that focuses on the analysis of natural conversation to discover the linguistic characteristics of conversation and how they are used in everyday life. But do you know that conversation analysis, there will be a criticism? So here we will talk about criticism of conversation analysis. Check it out. Okay, the major criticism on conversation analysis is that when we analyze data from the conversation analysis perspective, we are working as spectators, not participants in the interaction. In a modern area, the video recording facility will revolutionize the conversational analysis because the availability of real-time footage will make it possible to contextually analyze the decontextualized conversation. I will give you one example. Let's check the video.
Did you hear that in Italy, they're making vaccinations mandatory for all children?
Yes, I saw it on the news this morning. What do you think about it?
In my opinion, it's the best thing to do because it is in everybody's best interests. I wish the government would make it a legal requirement, but that's just the world we're living in. How about you?
While I would agree that it is generally seen as a good thing for kids to be vaccinated, I feel that it is up to the parents of each child to decide whether or not their kid will be vaccinated. I, for one, think that this is a case of the government overstepping its authority.
That may be true, but I think the most important thing to consider is the long-term health of the kids. It's pretty much universally acknowledged that vaccines help you stay healthier and protect you from preventable illnesses.
Something you need to consider is personal choice. You may say that everyone acknowledges it, but there are actually a lot of parents who do not want anything to do with vaccines because they believe they can lead to their kids developing learning difficulties later on. We must also consider different religious beliefs. Some religions prohibit vaccinations for one reason or another.
You raise good points, and I certainly respect the beliefs of people who don't agree. However, I think that even though this is a decision which may make a few people angry at first, it provides benefits for the greater number of people. I would argue that a larger number of people would benefit from this decision than wouldn't. Overall, I think it's a good decision in the long run.
Well, I guess we'll just have to agree to disagree.
So in this conversation, we can see that there are two people that talk about vaccines. One young girl tried to talk about and share her opinions about what makes a parents make a vaccine for their children or everyone. But the guy who talk about or share about his opinion that make a criticism about what he said before. So in this conversation, the CA or conversation analysis can be used to analyze the verbal and non-verbal cues, turn-taking patterns, and other linguistic characteristics. By examining the conversation using CA, researcher or we can gain insight into how criticism is expressed, how it affects interpersonal dynamics, and how power relations may influence the interaction. So this analysis can shed light on the social or communicative aspect of criticism in everyday life. So here are a criticism of CA. So we can see that CA is a valuable tool for analysis of spoken discourse, and also CA's view itself as a self-sufficient research tool is a problematic. It doesn't need data other than the conversation to explain and justify its claims. And also, as I ever talked to you before, the data analysts are working as spectators, not participants. And also, CA is lack of attention to issues power, inequality, and social disadvantages. It is also lack of attention to other historical, which is the culture and political issues, based on Paltridge 2006 122. So, however, like any other approach, CA has received some criticism, include 1. Limited generalizability. Critics argue that CA's focus on a small-scale interaction limits its generalizability to larger social phenomena. And 2. Lack of attention to power dynamics. Which is that some scholars argue that CA does not pay attention to power relations, social hierarchies, and ideologies. Third, overemphasis on talk. Critics claim that CA places too much emphasis on talk and neglects other aspects of communication such as non-verbal cues and content. 4. Methodological limitation. Some critics argue that CS methodology is too time-consuming and labor-intensive, making it difficulty to apply to large data sets. That's all about criticism of comparison analysis. So we will continue, and my friend Nanda will explain more about it.
Hello there, my name is Azara and Islami. Now I'm going to talk about the next part, which is a sample study. It's going to be about refusals. So what is a refusal? Refusal is a face-threatening act to the listener because it contradicts his or her expectations and is often realized through indirect strategies. So a refusal occurs when a speaker directly or indirectly says no to a request or invitation. So, according to Kitzinger and Frith, they provide about the conversation analysis and other data sources to examine what speakers say and the reasons why they can say it. Their study is about how the conversation analysis literature says that people typically refuse offers. Let's look at the example. The example here. A saying, "Why don't you come up and see me sometime?" So, in this example, there is no delay in this conversation because the acceptance starts before the offer is completed. The word "I would like to" uses direct speech here. Sometimes we also say like this: "I wish I could make it to the party, but I have a lot of work to do." So this sentence actually communicating actions of refusals. So under the correct circumstances, a speaker can express things like refusals, but we can also perform communicative action without directly saying it. Another examples, to realize a refusal, someone may not always say like this: "I can't go to your party, I have a lot of work to do," which means this is directly refuse. Instead, we can perform the same action indirectly. So if someone says like this: "I wish I could make it to the party, but I have a lot of work to do." This sentence is indirectly refused. So the whole utterance can be understood as a refusal without directly express the action of refusal. The other example, A is saying, if you'd care to come and visit a little while this morning, I'll give you a cup of coffee." B answered, "Well, that's awfully sweet of you. I don't think I can make it this morning. Uh, I'm running an ad in the paper and I have to stay near the phone." So, look at this example. Pay attention to this conversation. The example here, Kitzinger and Fried interviewed women who talk about having refused unwanted sex. So in this case, it required much more conversational work than just a simple no, because it is not sufficient and necessary to be heard. Also, sometimes in refusal, there are some points to be known. For example, the first one, an out breath as a delay, like like that. Second, a preface. For example, you'll say, "Well, that's awfully sweet of you." And then, before it gets to the refusal, there's going to be hedge. For example, "I don't think I can make it this morning." And then, before it gets to the reason of the refusal, there's gonna be a further delay, like, those kind of stuff. And we're going to the last reason for the refusal. So, like the previous example, the person saying, "I'm running an ad in the paper and I have to stay near the phone." So in the refusal, there will be point like that. Lastly, I will add two more examples of conversation in these following videos. Pay attention.
Do you know what pages we have to study for next week's class?
If only I had my notes.
In this conversation, the girl used the phrase "if only" to refuse the guy, and it is indirectly refused.
Hey, could you give me a hand? I need to take these boxes to storage.
I'd like to. If only I didn't have to finish this inventory report by 3.
In here, the guy used an out-breath delay in the beginning and then moved towards the reasons. This is also the example of indirectly refused.
Okay.
From the example before, just saying no was not enough for a refusal in that kind of situation. If many delays or answers that do not fit and proper, then the listener can be wrong interpreted if the speaker accepted his request. To conclude, to express refusal by just saying no is not good and necessary to be heard by the hearer, and refusal indirectly is better and polite to be heard, and also the hearer can understand our reason of our refusal.